How you doing? My name is Steve Musin. I'm the Extension Agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources here in Jessamine County. Jessamine County is in the central bluegrass region of Kentucky, just south of Lexington, and we are predominantly a forage producing county in terms of our agriculture production, and we produce a lot of hay, we produce a lot of cow-calf operations, and we also have some high-end thoroughbred farms here in Jessamine County. We are on Tim White's farm today, and I've known Tim for about 6 years now. He is one of our top cattle producers here in Jessamine County. He has a network of producers that work with him, and we're excited to have him as part of our Jessamine County Cattlemen's Association. Been very active in cattlemen leadership, and also we really enjoy having him here in Jessamine County in terms of his expertise. We've been able to tap into that by having field days and other events out here at his farm.
My name is Tim White. I live in Fayette County, just outside of Lexington. Okay, so my wife Amy, I have 2 kids, Rod and Addie. Rod has graduated from college and is back part-time on the farm. My daughter Addie has graduated from Oklahoma State here just lately and is working in Washington, D.C. But we are a family farm. We do have 2 full-time employees besides Amy and myself. We cover all of our grounds either in Jessamine and Fayette County. We cover 9 different locations, about 2,600 acres of grounds what we have to cover over. We have a cow-calf operation, just shy of 500 cows. And in the cow herd, we have several different things going on there. The first is we have purebred cows, and we have 3 breeds. We have registered Angus, registered Simmental Angus, and registered Red Angus cows. And then with that, we use those cattle for seed stock production. Every year we have a bull sale in the spring, and then we keep most of our heifers for replacement. And so we sell a few show heifers here and there out of that seed stock, but that's about 30% of our cow herd. The rest of the cow herd's used some for just straight commercial cows where we breed just crossbred breeding, and we sell those calves in the White Farm Alliance sale. And then the other part of the commercial cows that we have, we use for surrogate cows for recipient herds. We are a custom embryo transplant program for other farms across the country. So in our stocker program, our program is solely purchased cattle. We sell all of the calves off of our cow herd through our White Farm Alliance, and we turn around and we buy back commodity cattle. We do things a little different maybe than most people do. We buy only heifers. The majority, 90% of the heifers we buy weigh 600 pounds. We try to buy them weighing in the low 6s and graze them out till they weigh 800, and that's when we ship them west. So we buy enough cattle that we can put load lots together. We buy about 80% black. We try to stay at least 80% black. 6 weight heifers. Majority of those cattle are bought 1, 2, 5, 10 at a time. We can usually buy a heifer at least $15 to $25 a hundred back a steer at the same weight, and we've been able to market our heifers 10 to 15 cents back a steer weighing 800. So we do get some markup in the gain. We don't have to compete in the spring of the year with the competition for heifers is not as strong in the spring as it is for steers. So we go that direction. And then one of the biggest reasons why is buying a heifer and grazing her. You know, we have all kinds of risk management. But the biggest one for us is if something major catastrophe happened in the market, we can always breed those heifers and come out somehow instead of being a steer and you have to feed them and go forward. On arrival, those cattle come in, they lay overnight, in a pen with hay and water. The next day they are processed, and we use a modified live on arrival. We do a modified live, a black leg, we worm them, put a tag in their ear. That's all they get the first time through the chute. Then 7 days later, we come back, and it's basically the cattle that I bought the week before. We will, at the end of the next week, we will bring those cattle back. They will get revacked again with a 5-way modified live. We then abort all those heifers and implant them to go to grass. And then they're kicked out, and we usually do not bring those cattle back in until we'll sort through those cattle about 30 to 40 days before they're big enough to ship, and we'll divvy them out into weight groups so we know what cattle to load first. We usually buy in February and March, and we start shipping late July and August, and then we'll clean out, and then late August, September, 1st of October, we will turn around and buy back again. We will ship most of those cattle in December, so they'll be out. So we sit empty about 2 to 3 months out of the year, but we do make 2 flips a year on cattle. It fits our program. We do, it's like I said, we do ship all of our cattle direct. We've been selling direct west since 1996, and so we've built some partnerships with some feed yards that we just have a great relationship with, and it's pretty easy for us to sell. They know when their approximate time when we're going to be ready, and they're usually willing and ready to purchase cattle from us. One thing we have found is most of the bigger feed yards, the 35 to 50,000 and bigger head feed yards would prefer 2 and 3 loads at a time. And so we try to accommodate that. We try to usually ship 3 loads and fill a pen for them. And that they all like to buy large numbers. And so that's one thing we have learned. And usually when we sell the cattle, we'll graze around 1,400 head a year. Most of the time in the spring, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 head, somewhere in that neighborhood. We will sell those cattle all at one time. Even though we won't deliver them all the same day, will take us 30 days to deliver those cattle. They'll all be sold, and it's just a matter of getting them in and weighing them and getting the cattle delivered. In the same way that we do in the fall. We'll usually sell those cattle all at one time, and then it's just bring them in and get the cattle prepared and get them on trucks and send them west. So in our feeder and stocker program, it's a basic forage input only, but we do feed enough grain to these cattle. For one, they've got to know how to come to a trough to eat, so when they go to feed, and know how to come to a trough and drink. So when the cattle first come in, we don't feed over 2 to 3 pounds a day to these cattle per head coming in, and we'll feed them every day for probably the first 30 to 40 days till we know their health is good, and then we'll start backing those cattle off. And once we get into grass time and grass comes, we feed them very little, but we do utilize rotational grazing, and that's big for us to be able to move the cattle to fresh pasture at least once a week, preferably twice. We have seen a huge increase in daily gain and health in our cattle, keeping our grass fresh. Now, our grass base is Kentucky 31 fescue with clovers coming in it. They're not seeded clovers, it's just volunteer clovers. But we try to protect our grass. We never overgraze. We mow pastures frequently, at least 3 times a year. So we try to keep our grass green, lush, vegetative. Try to keep the endophyte stage down as much as we can, and we've tried to keep enough cattle on that grass, but not too much, and that is important. And so that's been huge for us. It's saved us a pile of money. The 31 fescue, if it's managed correctly, it works fine for us, especially like when we're buying cattle in the winter and we're running cattle all the way to December. We need the fescue for the fall run for grazing, and also the compaction and the tromping and the mud. It holds up and comes back. We have worked on we've planted about 150 acres of novel fescue, but most of our ground is rented pasture, and so it doesn't really work for us to go in and just renovate and fertilize. We do soil test, and if there's something really bad, we'll tend to it. But we use unrolling of hay in the winter. We use the manure of the cattle, especially where we're stocking so heavy. We see that we're getting pretty good fertilization back through our cattle by using the sources that we have there for them. Several years ago, for years, we would contract our cattle. And we'd get the cattle bought, and then 30 days out, we would go out and contract those to these same feed yards, and they, and be 60, 80, 100 days from delivery, we would contract those cattle to them. And that went for several years, but probably the last 5 or 6 years, with the way of high frequency trading and the way that media, social media, and just the way that the economic world changes so quickly, most of those have backed away from that. So we are starting now to look into the LRP program. That's a program that I think that could fit what we're wanting to do. Well, currently where we live, like where I live, the first challenge that we run into, and we've had it for years, but the last 2 or 3 years it's really been tough, is urban sprawl. I mean, we farm and live in the city limits of Lexington, and so we're constantly having urban sprawl coming out and taking up land that we've been on for years. And that's something that we will always deal with because we're this close to town. But that is one big thing for us. Another issue that we had a few years ago is we lost a lot of grazing ground to crop ground. And that's due to the markets and availability to make an income, and understandable. Other things that's coming up that's really, I think when you talk in terms of exports, that's going to be huge for us because, we're in an industry that's segmented. And every segment has to make money or we're not going to survive. And that's the thing, we've got to make sure that everybody makes money. If everybody can make some money, we're good for years. I see that if you look at the inventories that they're reporting across the country, I think we're going into a time that the fundamentals for an aggressive market for feeder cattle are coming pretty strong and pretty fast. Concern that I would have is the outside things that happen that could stop that feeder market. But I think from the standpoint of just grassroots to the feed yard, the inventories, the feed that we have, I think we're set up for a good ride for several years. That was said once before, and things happened and it went away. So I would caution, take baby steps with it. Don't go out and do things that do not be over aggressive. Go into it slow and go into this market coming up and everything is good. But that's the way we did the last time when it started up. I've always said what goes up must come down. So you just have to be prepared for when it comes down. So that's the way that we always work. Amy and I's theory and thought process in our own operation is we never swing for a home run. We just want to get a base hit every time. And a fella told me that when I first started in the business, and I kind of looked at him at first, but now that I'm getting older, he was exactly dead on. If you make money every time, you'll never go broke. So don't try to swing and hit the grand slam. Just get on every time, and you'll be around for several years.